As Stacy's already explained, this is a very special day in the life of our church, our International Harvest Campaign. Many of you have been praying for weeks, if not months, about how you might give cheerfully and abundantly in this offering to such an important cause. If you're a guest today and we've not met, my name's Todd Brown. I am the senior minister here at Bridge, and we're dressed in black because it's to make them feel like home. The national sport in New Zealand is rugby, and the famous New Zealand sports team, or the most famous team, is the All Blacks. Am I saying that right? And so we've asked you to dress in black. Many of you did. I was not looking forward to dressing black because it just makes me look so thin. But to be part of the celebration, I did. Listen, we aren't going to have a message today, not a sermon, but we are going to hear from the trustees, and they're going to answer some questions that I know you may have about the ministry. Rosalind and Michael Trusty, many of you met them 4 years ago when they were here, and they received our International Harvest Campaign at that time, and all of those funds went to locate them in New Zealand and help plant a church there. And so we feel like they're a family. Would you welcome Michael and Rosalind Trusty? Steph Softly is also no stranger to New Zealand. How many trips have you made to New Zealand? Three trips to New Zealand. And Steph is from Bridge. She has been in our missions committee. She put together our International Harvest Campaign, and good friends to the trustees, and she knows that work very well. It is good to see you all again. And thank you all for traveling. Literally, it's about as far as you can go, the other side of the world, almost exactly, and to be with us today. The last time you were here, you had all your kids with you, and they've grown and moved around, quieter at home, I assume. Tell us about family and your kids.
Yeah, so that's been a big adjustment in our lives last year. We have a 19-year-old that spent the summer with some of you. I don't know if you were here. The person she hit their vehicle in the parking lot, I'd like to meet you, and I'm glad all that got settled, sort of. So if you're here,
is that person here?
Okay.
All right.
So she's 19, and she's at Ozark Christian College. She left us about a couple years ago, I think, and changed the total dynamics of our home. No one told us that first child when they leave, even though we weren't empty nesters. It totally changed everything. But since August, we had our middle son, Micah. He's 17, and he left to go do his senior year back in Indiana, where we were before we moved to New Zealand. And so he's trying to get in the Air Force Academy. He's doing things like that. So that's been a big adjustment. We still have Josiah, who's over here, and representing well. So he's carrying a mantle for our church plant and the youth group and doing a lot of stuff. So he's stepped up, and we're glad for that. He's year 11 in New Zealand. Josiah,
would you stand for a minute? With the heart of a missionary, and because he loves the Lord so much, he has agreed to grow me a wig. And thank you. Yeah, for me. Yeah. 4 years ago when you were here, you were just looking at the field. You weren't even sure where the church would be. And 4 years later, church is planted. We saw pictures, baptisms in the ocean. February of 2018, the church began. What was that day like?
Yeah, that was an amazing day when you think about we weren't just trying to plant a church for a year or 5 years or 20 years. We're looking at being there for 50, 100 years, and Lord willing, until Jesus returns. But just thinking about landing in a foreign country, in a new city, and Papamoa was the suburb, fastest growing city in Tauranga, and we didn't know anybody. So it's just amazing how God, that causes you to pray, to every person you meet, you're looking at possibility of casting that possibility that we'd meet a person of peace, which in the mission field, that's super critical, that you already been praying for and thinking about who's God going to put in your pathway that you'll connect with, that gets it, and that you might have the opportunity to share the gospel with and disciple. And so thinking about that first service of having 135 people there after being there for a year and a half, just starting off with a Bible study in our home, meeting people, meeting our neighbors, and the people of peace that God brought us from around the world. And then that first service that happened February of 2018 was sort of exhilarating, just knowing, okay, we've started this journey, and Lord willing, we'll be doing this for a long time. But it's amazing to see. I can't even tell you how we got that many people and where we're at today, just that God has been faithful. He's been good.
Well, what are some of the milestones in these first few, little over a year since you've planted that church? Rosalind?
Okay, so milestones, our first major milestone was our first wilderness camp, which just kind of came out of the blue. We didn't have, we went there with this church planning coach who had a plan for us, and so we were determined to stick to his plan, but then we got there and God kind of pushed away the plan, and we had this wilderness camp when we'd only been there a few months, and it was just for high schoolers. Michael had met some at the basketball, through basketball at the high school, and that was just an amazing, the whole thing was just amazingly covered by God's presence. And when we returned, the kids all said, well, we want to meet together. So we started basically church with a youth group, and that from that moment till now, we meet every Friday night. We do different activities with them. We have Monday night boys Bible study, which God just created from that. So that was a major milestone for us, because that was how the church started, was through youth. We had, one of the major milestones was on the first birthday when you guys were, your team was over in New Zealand. We had these Japanese come that we had been working with a little bit before, but they came and they were baptized on that day, and that started this Japanese discipleship group, which I wish I could tell you the story of that, and hopefully I'll get the chance to tell you out there. It's just amazing how God worked that out. We have this South African lady, Charlotte. She came to church, and now we have this outreach to South Africans because of her. She does a girls' Bible study for us. So it's just the milestones kind of around the people that God has brought us to develop a relationship with, that somehow something springs from them.
Yeah. Rosalind, you were born in New Zealand, and for definition purposes this morning, what is the difference between New Zealander, Maori, Kiwi? What do those words mean?
Okay, so a Kiwi is anybody that is born in New Zealand. We all call ourselves Kiwis, but there's a New Zealand European, or Pakeha, which means white. So that's me. And then you guys are so, what other church does this? But you guys don't realize, but you have a New Zealand Maori here this morning, Tamati, who surprised us in the first service. Tamati, he's studying at the Ozark Christian College as well. He is a New Zealand Maori. So they are the native people to New Zealand. They arrived first and have been there for hundreds of years. And so Kiwi is anyone born in New Zealand, be they Maori or Pakeha. A Kiwi bird is our native bird, which is, so if I describe it to you, it's not going to sound very cool, but it really is. It's a bird that only comes out at night, and it can't fly, and it just eats bugs, and it's almost extinct, but it's our native bird, so it's the Kiwi bird. And then kiwi fruit is called kiwi fruit because it's kind of round and fuzzy like our little kiwi bird. So a Kiwi is just a person. If you want to go to the store and eat a kiwi, you have to say, can I have kiwi fruit?
Yeah. Well, in America, it's an eagle. Stephanie and I went with you, Rosalind, to New Zealand 4 years ago to start finding that place where the Lord was calling you to. I was overwhelmed by the beauty of New Zealand. It is magical, beautiful, and it's paradise. But as we've talked before, it's not spiritual paradise, is it? You grew up there, you know the culture very well. Tell us a little bit about the culture and the challenge for the church there.
So New Zealand is a beautiful place that God created, just like anywhere God created, it's beautiful. And because it's an island and it's been quite remote and it's been quite protected, it's stayed in a very beautiful state. And so a lot of people choose to go to New Zealand for holidays, for honeymoons. So you can go to New Zealand and you can stay on a very, very surface level of just enjoying what God has made. And you'll leave and you may never realize, unless you sit down and think it through, that perhaps you didn't see a single church the whole time you were there. You probably would not have heard a spiritual conversation or seen any real spiritual, godly, biblical values in anything that you saw there. It's very easy. Satan has created kind of a blanket that you don't see underneath. You just see what he wants you to see. But it's a very, very spiritually dark place. There's a real lack of Bible teaching. As I say, godly values, anything like that. We have the worst teen suicide rate. We have our domestic abuse rate has to be brought up at the United Nations. I mean, it's pretty bad, and it's all because there's no hope. There's no hope ever preached. There's nowhere for kids to turn because nobody is offering that to them. So yes, it's a beautiful spot, and there's lots of nice things to do outdoors, but those are the things we see with our eyes. What we see with the eyes of our heart, when they're opened, it's a very dark hole.
One of the things we noticed when we were there, it is quite a melting pot of nations, which has its own challenges for a church. And as we saw in the film, some of your first baptisms were Japanese people. So would you say the church is international, or what are the challenges there with such a diverse culture?
Yeah, our church is very international. Auckland which is the biggest city in New Zealand, has just taken over London as the most diverse city in the world, and Tauranga is 3 hours south, and we're a microcosm of that. We have just, I don't know what culture we don't have, or what people group we don't have. So it is a challenge. We thought our plan was to go there. We thought we knew who we'd be reaching, but God is bringing a whole bunch of different people to us. And what's kind of neat is, they're immigrating as refugees or as immigrants to New Zealand, but they have to sort of speak a little bit of English. So that's how it's been a little bit difficult to, there's some challenges, but there is that common language of English, so we're able to have these different outreaches to different nationalities, and we do have a lot in the church. But can I take 1 minute?
Please,
I just want to tell you about Mayu, because this story is so cool. She's from Japan, and so she met one of a lady from Zimbabwe, was bringing her son to youth group one night, and she met because they live in the same apartment area, and she said, "Oh, where are you going?" And she said, "I'm taking my son to youth group." She said, "Oh, are you a Christian?" And Gertrude said, "Yes." And so Mayu said, "I've been wanting to meet a Christian. I've been looking for a Christian." She's from Japan and only speaks very broken English, only been there for a few months. She said, somebody gave me this New Testament in English and Japanese, but I don't understand it because the Christian that she had met had treated her very, very badly. And I just want to know why people who say they're Christians do something different from this Bible. I want to know about God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, the Bible. She wants to know it all, every question. So Gertrude come running to us at youth group. "I'm bringing this girl to church on Sunday. You have to convert her." Okay. So she comes to church on Sunday. I'm like, "Well, come over for a Bible study. Let's do Bible study." And so then Michael leaves the next day for ICOM, which is the International Conference on Missions. So he goes, and I set up this time for Mayu to come over. And I'm thinking, how am I going to, because she keeps texting me, "Now make sure you're going to tell me about the Holy Spirit. I want to know about the Bible. I want, it's constant, this list of what she wants to know." And I'm thinking, how am I going to tell her what she wants to know in a way that she can understand? I don't know how to do this. So Michael, I talked to him, "She's coming over in half an hour, Michael. What am I going to do?" And he said, "Oh man, I saw a missionary from Japan this morning. If only I would have known and thought about that, I could have maybe asked him. He hung up the phone. I hung up the phone. I'm like, okay, I've got to go do something. He turned around and there's a missionary from Japan. And the missionary from Japan has this church in Japan that has on their website, side by side, Bible studies. Who is God? What is a Christian? Who is the Holy Spirit? And we were able to walk through that for those weeks leading up to our first birthday. So God, yeah, God. So in different ways, God's providing what we need. Doesn't matter about the culture. God's providing what we need to the people that he brings to us.
Wow. Well, we surprised Michael and Rosalind this morning because they didn't know that one of their converts to Christianity, a young Maori native of New Zealand, Tamati, was in Joplin, Missouri. He was attending Ozark Bible College, and we, the missions committee, flew him in as a surprise. We wanted to introduce Tamati to you. We want you to hear his story. Tamati, would you join us, please? Tamati, it's good to have you with us too. And Maori, how old are you?
I'm 18.
18. And we've already mentioned the rugby, right?
Yep.
All Blacks. Did you play rugby?
Yep, I played ever since I was young.
What is the difference between rugby and football, American football?
There's two differences that I can remember now. One was we wear less padding, so that's for a lot of padding. And two is it.
You don't wear helmets, do you?
No helmets.
You're crazy.
And the
But
second
is it? Don't you carry something that looks like a football? Is it similar to an American?
Yeah, it's just a bit bigger, a little lighter, and has more grip.
Okay.
And football takes forever. It's so long. Rugby is really short.
You know how long it takes to eat a large pizza in my house? It takes a while. How short is a rugby game?
A rugby match is about 80 minutes long, but with all the little stops, it's probably 100 minutes.
Okay, great. Tell us about your journey with the trustees. How did you meet them? What's happening in your life now?
So I met Michael first at the high school I was going to, playing basketball, and he asked me if I wanted to go to this youth camp, and he didn't tell me that it was going to be a Christian camp. I had no clue about that. And so he asked me if I wanted to go, and I said, yeah, sure. He said it was going to be, it was going to cost money, and I asked how much, and he said, I think it was $150, and I was like, oh, I don't think I'll be able to come then. And he's like, look, I'll make a deal with you. If you can bring $50, then I'll pay for the rest. And so just that small act of kindness, I was able to go into this this camp, but also it costs way more, and it's support the support you guys give Bridge as a church to the New Zealand. Our church is what helped make it easier for students like me to go to that camp. So, yeah.
Now, was there any Christianity in your background growing up? Was it all new to you, or what sparked for you?
I didn't really have a lot of Christianity background. One of my sisters was baptized when I was young, but we didn't hang out a lot. And just meeting them and how encouraging they were towards me being a Māori person, and that's how
Okay.
it led me to.
Rosalind mentioned earlier that New Zealand leads the world in teen suicide. Is that right? And the United Nations are taking up the domestic violence issue particular to New Zealand. So that's the culture you grew up in. I don't want to put you on the spot, but what might your life have looked like if you'd kept going down the road you were going down?
So yeah, youth suicide is the biggest New Zealand in the world. It was the highest last year as well, and it actually doubled this year. And but I definitely think that what it is in New Zealand, as a teenager, you like most of the world, you follow trends, and when something is trend, you jump on it, and drinking and partying has become quite a trend in New Zealand as well as teenagers. So I think that's definitely where I would have been.
Do you think, looking back on your teen years, did you ever think I would be in America at a Bible college studying for ministry?
Heck no.
Did you just say heck no? We don't say heck. Well, we are thrilled to have you with us here today, and may the Lord bless you. What are you studying?
My major is student ministry.
Wow, good. Heck yeah, yeah. We are going to take up that love offering today that I mentioned earlier. You all have been preparing for that. If you're a guest or you've missed some of this information, this offering is going to something very specific for the current church. We want to be able to supply them with salary, a 2-year salary that in American dollars would be between $80,000 and $90,000 for additional staff at the church. We really do hope and pray that we're able to meet this need for you. Can you tell us a little bit about that need? Why now? Do you have somebody in mind? What would their job be?
So we would love to find a specific person that could help us in our worship and youth, because that's such a growing need for us right now. We're seeing more people come to the church who are connecting to God through the worship service, and then also youth because of the desperate need in our culture, in our specific suburb where youth aren't finding things to do. They're gravitating towards drugs and alcohol and things like that. So we'd love to find somebody. We have a person as a candidate right now, Luke and Kelsey, his wife Kelsey, and they have 2 young kids. And so they were a candidate. We're really trying to look. It's not easy to find someone who has that as a passion to be in ministry, to be about disciple making. And so we want that to be part of it. We want them to be able to work as a team. And so we're still praying, but we're looking. We'd love to find those key roles, but we're primarily looking for great, solid people who understand outreach and discipleship making and through relationships. I mean, we're so much about relationships. Everything we do is trying to break down the walls, stereotypes about Christianity. A lot of people have never seen what it really looks like to be a follower of Christ. So the only thing they have in their mind is all the stereotypes. So we got to get in relationship and begin initiating these types of ministries. So maybe this couple might be the ones, but we're still wanting to let God show us who he has in mind. So maybe those are the ones.
And this couple, one is an American, one is...
Yeah, Luke is Kiwi, and he's the primary person we're looking at, and his wife is American. Okay. So they have that understanding too.
So an American and a Kiwi, there's got to be some huge benefit to having someone on staff that understands. I mean, not that you don't understand, but that grew up that way. What do you think Rosalind gets that maybe you don't get? What advantage is there to hire a Kiwi for additional staff? Wait a minute, I set that up wrong.
Well, thankfully in our culture, because we are a melting pot and we have people from all generations, it's not as big as it could be, but I mean, I think certainly there's just the obvious love for her people and passion for all the Maori and the Pakeha and a connected. I mean, obviously they appreciate having the accent. I can't roll my R's at all. I know people have tried to teach me, and I'm going to get it someday, but I say all their names wrong and butcher them, but thankfully they're forgiving. But it's so nice when you do just get over those little things and speak the language well and things like that. So it'd be a huge connection to our community, to the people.
Great.
And we'll communicate even more effective with the Kiwi.
Great. Hand the mic to Steph. Steph has been in New Zealand a number of times. She loves you all, loves the work there, and she has a video that she wants to show. Steph, can you set this up for us?
So yeah, I've been to New Zealand 3 times now, and I was saying the first service that I was actually one of the ones that was like, I don't know that Bridge wants to get involved in a work in New Zealand. I had my own reasons behind that, and then I went and completely fell in love with the trustees, fell in love with the people, and said, oh my goodness, how could we not be a part of this? Every time I go and I sit down with Rosalind, she just starts talking about Bridge this, Bridge that, Bridge this, Bridge that. Like, she loves Bridge. And one time we were riding to wilderness camp. I went Easter this year, so we were riding in the van to wilderness camp, and I said, Rosalind, if there is anything, a message that you could send back to Bridge, what would that be? And so we captured that very emotional moment on video.
Listen, I need to say this. It is important that you know that Bridge, nor the leaders at Bridge, condone in any way drinking and driving. It's a New Zealand thing, I guess. Steph, what would you really like to say about the trustees?
No, I really do want to say thank you to Bridge for just getting behind them 100%. Everything from wearing black to putting on 1 or 2 or 10 stickers, just to show the fact that you want to be united with them in this ministry. They have always made us feel at home anytime we have visited, anytime they have come here. They just cannot get over how welcome they feel. And I just want to express to the trustees and to Tomati just our appreciation for you all just jumping in head first to this ministry. Like, there is a no holds bar. You haven't held anything back. Like, you have worked yourselves sweat, tears in this ministry, and we're seeing fruit from this ministry here with us today. Having Tomati, you all have no idea what a blessing that is for you all, for us, for these guys here, the encouragement it is just to see, wow, God is at work, and the proof is right there. So thank you all for what you do. Tomati wouldn't be here if it weren't for you all, and the others that are back in New Zealand wouldn't have a hope for eternity, life with Jesus, if it weren't for you. So thank you for what you do.
Yes.